So in this video, you are going to be introduced to both positive and negative externalities and how and what they look like on our graph that we were just using for marginal analysis. These are the learning targets, and now we'll move on to our first example of a negative externality. As you can see, the graph is set up the same as we had for Canon, but now we're talking about cigars. And so our original marginal cost and marginal benefit curves are exactly the same. Again, the producers and consumers in this market are going to arrive at their optimal quantity by applying the golden rule. Where does marginal benefit and marginal cost equal one another? I've labeled that quantity as QP because that represents the private market outcome. The private market decides among those people who actually make and smoke cigars, they're arriving at this quantity. Now the problem here is that cigars give off some smoke that often bothers a lot of people. So secondhand smoke imposes a cost on people other than the people who smoke and produce the cigars, people who happen to just be nearby. When we have a situation like this, when costs fall on people outside of the decision makers here, then we've got a negative externality. And we're going to represent that by showing that from society's point of view, when we take into account these additional costs, our cost curve is going to be up here, always above the private market marginal cost or supply. So now I've added the cost from the perspective of society. At every quantity, society sees that quantity of cigars producing a higher cost than what cigar smokers see the cost. That's why we've drawn this curve for marginal cost to society above what the private market or the supply of cigars would ordinarily be at. And now notice we still apply the golden rule. Where does marginal benefit equal marginal cost? But instead of that quantity being at QP, because the costs are higher for society, they want a smaller quantity of QS. So it's a matter of the market has over-allocated. The private market decides to make and smoke more cigars than what society would like to see. Notice that the price or the cost here is also lower when the private market decides than when society decides. So if we summarize, then negative externalities cause the private market to over-allocate and overproduce cigars or anything else that might have costs not captured by the people involved in the transaction for those cigars. So in this case, the marginal social cost is higher than the private marginal cost. And the way that the government can try to correct this is to try to get those decision makers, the consumers and buyers of cigars, to internalize the cost that they impose on each other or to society when they smoke cigars by imposing a Pigouvian tax. In the end, this forces them to take in some of the costs that otherwise would be ignored, and they end up buying and smoking a smaller number of cigars than they would without that tax. And this is just a little reminder that the marginal social cost is equal to the marginal private cost plus the marginal external costs. So that's again back on our graph. Here's the private marginal costs. The distance between this and the marginal social cost is those external costs from secondhand smoke that really make each quantity of cigars more costly to society than to the private market, the cigar smokers and producers